Hello, and welcome to the first ever program brought to you by JMC TV, Marshall's entertainment hub. JMC TV consists of video production programs from students in Marshall University's W. Page Pitt School of Journalism and Mass Communications. Today's program is Sportsview, WMUL's premier sports talk show featuring guests from Thundering Herd Athletics. You can listen to WMUL on 88.1 FM and online at www.marshall.edu/WMUL. Make sure to follow Marshall's broadcast voice on social media at WMUL_radio and the FM 88 Sports social media team at WMUL_sports. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Stay tuned for another sports presentation on the worldwide leader of Marshall University athletics coverage, the Cutting Edge Sports Radio Network. This is Sportsview, WMUL's premier sports talk show, featuring guests from Thundering Herd Athletics. Sportsview is presented by the award-winning FM 88 sports team. Now, here's tonight's host of Sportsview.
Welcome to Sportsview. I am Luke Creasy, and I feel like I've taken a step back in time. These last few moments, I got my backpack on, walked across campus, walked into the communications building up to the WMUL studios, and then down here to Studio A of the communications building, where we will bring you Sportsview. It gives you an inside look to what goes on in the world of athletics at Marshall University. I'm joined by two special guests today, both who work in the sports information department. We've got David O'Leary and Cody Lynn. Guys, thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thank you all for having us on.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah. Well, let's just jump right into it. There's a side of athletics that people don't see. And I think me working in the media, you guys working with the media can kind of attest to that as well. But let's just start off with the basic question. What do you do?
Well, that's a great question, really, because there's a lot of things we do. Sports information director, it's an all-encompassing term, but quite literally it goes back to the basics of sports information. We are directing all the information that goes within our sports. So again, Cody and I, and then we have Grant Traylor, our head. We have different sports that we work with, and we kind of divvy up those sports. And we are essentially, again, kind of provide the information to the external media of all things Marshall athletics.
Yeah. You mentioned Grant Traylor. I'm going to read off his fancy title just because he'll probably hate me for doing it. But the Associate Athletic Director of Communications, and deals a lot with football, men's golf, and women's golf. David, here to my left, is kind of in charge of women's soccer, women's basketball, cross country, track and field, and softball. I'm reading this off the website, so if there is wrong information, you can correct me. And then Cody over here, volleyball, men's soccer, men's basketball, baseball, tennis, and swimming and diving.
Yep.
That's a lot, especially once sports get into full swing. There's a lot going on at the same time. I think every time I look at my email, I've got a release from one of you guys. And if it's not from you guys, it's from Grant. But, just how involved and plugged in are you, throughout a week, keeping track of all this stuff with different sports?
Yeah, you have to be really plugged in, especially with your own sports. So sometimes it deters from maybe not knowing much of what's going on in other sports because you have to be so locked in. Like with the fall, there's so much going on that with volleyball going on at the same time as men's soccer, as volleyball, as women's soccer. It's hard to keep up at times with everybody else's sports, unless you're able to make it there if you don't have a conflict at times.
Yeah. And, I know it truly is a team effort. It's been a valuable resource to people in the media who are covering the teams. I know it from back in my days as a student and working with different sports information directors then. And even as I transitioned into my professional career at the Herald-Dispatch, shameless plug, you can read my stuff in the Herald-Dispatch all the time. I'm the Marshall Athletics beat reporter, so I deal with these guys on a consistent basis. It's fun to get you guys in this setting. And, how did you get into, this career? Was this something you planned on doing, or was this something that just kind of popped up along the way and you walked in an open door.
Sure. And, the easy answer is, I loved sports as a kid. And that's the easy answer that a lot of people, I think, would say. As you kind of get into college, and I personally was a Marshall grad, and I took sport management classes for Dr. Mack. So we worked somewhat closely here with the School of Journalism. But again, I knew I wanted to work in sports. I didn't know exactly what that looked like. And so I did a lot of internships as a student that, again, a lot of the students here are being provided, which is awesome. As I kind of got, into the upperclassmen levels, I kind of realized I liked the communications aspect. I really liked kind of talking through the teams and kind of being that buffer. So that's kind of how it got started. Obviously, I graduated right around the COVID time, which threw everyone for a loop,
Yeah.
right? But fortunately, I had a connection, Alderson Broaddus University, which unfortunately has closed just in the past few months. I had a connection there, and I worked there for a year. I really enjoyed my time there, albeit, again, unfortunately, a school that was in its final year or two. But then I was able to receive a call from Marshall University, and it was really a no-brainer to come back to your alma mater. And so that's what ultimately led me, in a very quick way of putting it, back to Marshall here as a sport information.
Yeah, joined the team last year, I believe, right? And have been a great addition to the team, and joined the team with a guy who was already here. And you've traveled around a bit. I know you graduated from Ohio, but that's not where, just an hour and a half up the road. You went a little further than that.
Yeah, so like David, I grew up liking sports. Didn't know if I wanted to be part of my career at the time, though. Started in journalism classes. Went to grad school. Got a GA job when I realized it was an option, and they opened them up, and fell in love with it, and have done it ever since, including at South Alabama before coming to Marshall, back up north.
South Alabama, team that's also in the Sun Belt, so maybe you'll get a trip down there back to your old stomping grounds?
Not this year. Men's basketball comes back, and we I can't talk about that schedule yet.
No, you're good. You're good. I'm not asking you to break any news here.
But
So
so they don't. Yeah, men's basketball comes later, but I'll get to see familiar face and JT Crabtree, who's now their men's basketball radio play-by-play guy. He was the women's with me when I was there at SID for the women's team, so we know each other well. So it'll be good to see him.
That's one thing that I've noticed. Like when you get into the sports world, it's much smaller than you think because people move from here to different schools and from different schools to other schools. And, eventually there's a familiar face just about everywhere you go. Is that kind of something you guys have seen? Because I know travel's a little bit of it too.
Right. And, and you would know this with your job as well. Camaraderie is such a big aspect because, what we do, there's some high stress moments, right? And so to have that, camaraderie with someone who is going through maybe something at a similar size school, and to be able to know, be able to talk through that, it's very helpful. And again, to be able to see someone at a conference tournament that you worked with a few months ago, really, it's enjoyable. It's very nice to be able to see that.
What are some of the day-to-day operations? Specifically when it comes to in-game. As a fan, people are watching the games, maybe listening to a pre or post game on a radio show, watching the game while they're there. But for a sports information director, let's go basketball. Yeah. What does a basketball game look like for you?
Leading up to the basketball game is making sure game notes and previews are done, getting those ready for the media. And then in-game, it's making sure printers working, laptops working to be able to stat the game. Because as you see the stats being populated, that's me, David, Grant, or somebody inputting on a computer for all the sports.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and again, you put in, you kind of take for granted if you're watching from home, like, oh, that was a 17-yard completion. That was the second time quarterback XYZ has done that. That a lot of work goes into that, right? So, again, I know personally when I was a younger, fan watching a football game, I would never have thought about that. But it is pretty interesting when you kind of put that part into perspective.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that, I've always said I cover sports because I can't play sports. The last time I played an organized sport, I played church league softball.
Sure.
But, before that it was YMCA soccer, and then I decided that I'm not quite the athlete. I'm not going to ask you guys that question because you don't have to embarrass yourselves on here. But, I think one of the most enjoying parts of the job for me, and I know you guys get to do some travel as well. Where has this job taken you? What are some of your favorite memories or places you've been to?
Yeah, so I traveled with softball all of last season, and again, I'm just now starting year 2 with Marshall. But I traveled pretty much all season long with softball. That's a great group. Everything that the people saw, if you're familiar with the softball team, 45 wins last year. Everything you saw on the outside was just as great on the inside, if not better. They were a fun group to travel with, just really great camaraderie, again, to use that word. So, yeah, we traveled down to Florida in February, which is a lot better than, unfortunately, the cold weather in West Virginia in February.
Especially when it's beginning of spring.
Right.
Yeah.
It was perfect in February, that year, back in February. Again, went to Appalachian State. Coastal Carolina, again, different places that I never thought I would have gone to. I never would have dreamed of going to Monroe, Louisiana. It rained a lot there, and I enjoyed it, but it was still an interesting trip. And then the Sun Belt Conference Tournament in Lafayette, Louisiana, again, a place I never would have expected myself to go to. But those bus rides, the flights, just being with the team, seeing the team, just kind of not in game action, but just being around each other. That's the best part to me by far. Just getting to know the athletes, getting to hear their stories, know what they do, and just traveling with them. To me, potentially, just best part.
Cody, I'll propose the same question to you.
Well, similar to David, that's what got me into it was the being around the student athletes, the coaches, getting to know them. That's what drew me in when I started as a GA and made me want to do the job. But some of the interesting places, it's been a while since I've traveled since COVID, but going to El Paso. I never thought I'd go to El Paso, Texas, and it is, as hard as it is to get there, it is a beautiful place with the mountains and the scenery they have in El Paso. And San Antonio, too. I never thought it's the first time I went to San Antonio was with men's basketball. I got to see the Alamo and the Riverwalk, and just those type of trips are just once in a lifetime with certain people you get to go do it with.
Yeah, absolutely. So whenever I travel, I have a bucket list. This is, I'm looking for... And I'll just give it away. I'm looking for a coffee shop. I'm looking for a good donut. And I'm looking for, just some fun things to do. What are some things you guys like to do? Because I know the freedom is a little bit limited when you're on the road with the team, with the athletic department. But what are some of the things you get to do?
Yeah, to me, it's seeing what's their landmark part of their campus. For Marshall, I think everyone would agree it's the Student Center, the fountain.
Yep.
To me, I want to go and see what the other campus, their main landmark is. At Georgia Southern, you have a big eagle on campus. At Appalachian State, you have a big mountaineer on campus. Coastal Carolina, well, it's close to the beach, but, there's other landmarks again. So, yeah, just seeing what that big part of their campus is, what is their main gathering point, what is the selling point for students to come to that school. To me, it's very interesting. That's what I like to do.
I know Cody's looking for a record shop or the nearest rock concert, right?
That or when traveling with men's basketball, we'd go bowling. We'd look for a sporting event. When we played at Duquesne, we went to a Penguins game. So just stuff like that. Whenever things pop up and it's in town, make sure to go.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, you guys are making this easy. We are just a little shy of halfway through the program, so we're going to go ahead and step aside, take a quick break. On the other side of that, we'll finish up Sportsview with the Sports Information Department.
Hello and welcome to the music request hotline. Please state the name of the genre you'd like to hear.
Alternative?
You said hip-hop. If that's correct, please say yes.
No.
You have confirmed hip-hop.
No. Wait.
What's
I
that?
said alternative.
Country you want to hear?
No.
Country it is.
No, I
You
said alternative.
sports.
Alternative
Techno
rock.
music.
No.
Okay, I can-
Tired of ignored requests? Call 696-6651 and get what you asked for on WMUL
Hang us
FM.
high.
No,
Like
I wanna hear
oh, yeah,
jazz.
diddly-diddly-doo.
Alternative.
I'm
No.
playing the jazz.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, the WMUL request line singers.
Well, I've tried so hard just to let you know that there's nothing I won't do. Every time you play my song, I just want to sing along. Every time you play my favorite tune.
Call 696-6651 now. DJs are standing by.
Sportsview, and like I said at the top of the show, I am Luke Creasy, an alumni of this program, and happy to be back here behind the headset. It's been a while, but happy to be joined by two of my friends who just happen to work in sports information. We deal with each other on a consistent basis. We'll dive a little more into that and what that looks like as we wrap up the program here. We got about 15 minutes left with these guys, but guys, once again, thank you for joining. This is David, and this is Cody. I almost got that backwards.
Well, being a twin, wouldn't be the first time that's happened to me in my life. So,
and the other twin is also in the business.
Right,
so
right. Earlier I mentioned, loving sports from a young age. That's not just me. I have a twin, a fraternal twin at that, but he's a sports fan as well, and he is a communications manager for FC Cincinnati, the Major League Soccer team there, who's currently leading the Eastern Conference. So, it's nice to have a twin also to work with here who also is big into the sports field.
Yeah, no kidding. And for those listening, it is too late to ask for tickets to see Messi.
Yeah, it's a little too late for that. But yes.
Obviously that draws a lot of attention there, but that is going to be a big matchup for FC Cincinnati, obviously. But we see plenty of big game action here with the Herd. Me, as far as a media member covering it, relying on you guys for some of that information as we get going. But, what are some of your best memories, maybe best games you've been a part of, most fun you've had on the job?
Yeah, I would say, so actually my birthday of last year, February 16th, the men's basketball team played Georgia Southern in a game, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but if anyone remembers, they were down, I think, double digits maybe late in that contest, came back, rallied, an incredible comeback for the men's basketball team, and it was really part of that special run they were on last year, and that was definitely one of my favorite games so far from my first year back at being with Marshall. Again, perfect birthday present for me.
Yeah, no kidding. That on their way to a 24-win season, got knocked out early in the conference tournament. But, I remember being courtside for that game. That was definitely an exciting – well, before we get too far, I have to tell a story. Right. So I met Bill Plaschke this summer, and we were kind of talking about, what it looks like to write during a game. And he said, at some point you have to go all in. Okay, so I went all in, and I start writing this up. It doesn't look like Marshall's going to pull anything out, so I've got a lot of a story written up because I'm on deadline, and then all of a sudden here comes the comeback, and my story completely changes. I did get the story filed by deadline, and I've been burned a couple of times by basketball, by soccer, by football, and then sometimes I'm right too. So just a little bit of a side note there. Those games are incredibly fun to be a part of, I think, from any aspect, whether that's fan, media, or sports info. But Cody, how about you?
Most memorable time since I've been here is my first year and with baseball and it's not just one game, it was the last series of the year when all 3 wins against Rice were all walk-offs to make the conference tournament.
Yeah.
So it was just unbelievable as a baseball fan to see 3 straight walk-offs.
And as a guy writing the recap, I mean, that's a dream, right?
Yeah. It is. It definitely is. And I can just remember, because obviously playing at Route 2, Rice plays at a nice stadium, so they were a little surprised to come up and play, and then it just organically happened where it just seemed like we were in the right position, right time for the walk-off in each game.
And, that kind of leads to an interesting point there, what you said about, the recaps and everything. It's hard to kind of distinguish that being a fan and being a worker of a team like that. Mm-hmm. Again, going back to that Georgia Southern basketball game last year, trying to stat a game like that is not easy.
No.
Because you're getting caught up in it. The fans are going wild. It can be hard. It can be a challenge to stat that. Again, keep composed and try not to get caught up in it. Because I remember Cody kind of helping me out with that. Because I think there at the end, I don't know, it was hard. But again, things like that can be a challenge, but also really exciting and rewarding at the same time.
I had a similar moment last year. This is my second year on the Herd beat for all sports. But the first road game that I worked was Notre Dame. And so I get back up in the press box, and I'm sitting in front of my computer, and I just kind of froze. And I was like, because people are going to be hanging this on their walls,
Right,
and
right.
in that moment, I'm like, I don't want to mess this up, and but definitely fun to be a part of stuff like that, and you get to build memories, along the way. But we mentioned you guys were in charge of specific sports, but sometimes it's all hands on deck, right? I mean, when the football team goes at it again against Virginia Tech on the 23rd, that's kind of everybody on board and pulling in the same direction, right?
It is everybody on board. We have a somewhat makeshift stats crew since last year, where I'm now inputting since last year, and we have a ragtag group of basketball managers, strength and conditioning coach, just whoever can help, or like Jacob Garnes, director of video for men's basketball, he's helping now this year too. So it's just all hands on deck if we can find anybody to just help see what's going on and just be able to get it for stat broadcast and stats to make sure everything's right.
Yeah, I know Grant deals with as far as like media requests for football and that kind of thing. But when people, aside from statting the game, things like that, leading up to you're kind of the guy who kind of filters through. Okay, this person needs to be covering the game, where they're going to sit. Is that kind of what you're handling too?
A little bit, but with the other sports, there's only so much space in our press boxes to deal with.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much space is going to be at the baseball press box. That'll be all new this year.
Yep.
Which will be nice. But in the past, I would help Jason Courier with the nameplates, organizing seating chart, making sure everything was set. But Grant has taken it on and done it pretty much by himself this year.
Yeah. When teams start to do well, we kind of hit on it with your brother at FC Cincinnati, but when teams start to do well, do those requests kind of get amplified a little bit, and you're doing a little more than maybe you were at the beginning of the season?
Oh, for sure. And, again, I keep harping on the softball team, but it's hard not to with the year they had last year. But take, for example, the Alabama game last year, where you break an attendance record. You have people everywhere. You do have a lot of media requests, and you do have a lot of people who want to talk to our coaching staff, our players, or even in that case, a big pitcher from Alabama. You do see that start to grow, and that's the exciting part. Again, it's what these student athletes want, and again, to kind of go back to, I think it's just amazing what WMUL does, really covering the Olympic sport teams here. Really that, because what they do matters a lot. And again, taking cross country this weekend for an example, having a meet on Friday, their first home meet in over 30 years. Again, it matters a lot to those athletes. So if we can do our part to help them out and make them feel, special, important, that's what we got to do. It's important.
Yeah, I think I keep going back to my time as a student. When I was sitting in this chair as a student, it was actually before we even did it in this studio. We were upstairs just behind microphones. There was no video. This program has grown a lot as far as the School of Journalism goes. But, I think it requires kind of a give and take when you're looking at the relationship between sports info and, media covering the game, whether that's student media, whether that's professional media. I think I can speak for all three of us when I say that there's working together, and there's coexisting within that to kind of help both get our jobs done, right?
There definitely is. Sportsview helps even our men's soccer team, even though that gets people in here to talk that may not usually get to talk. So it helps all of our sports, and WMUL and school journalism helps us with statting basketball too, with us a mixer and headsets. That way we can kind of get the crowd out as much as we can, so that way we can hear each other, because with basketball you got to be just quick as possible, just go, go, go. And if you can't hear something, you get behind. It can be a spiraling effect.
David, I know you graduated from here. Did you kind of have some help from professionals in sports info as you were trying to make your path?
For sure, yeah. And again, I was fortunate enough to have an internship with the Cincinnati Reds when I was a student. It wasn't necessarily in athletic communications; it was actually more in a marketing and promotional side. But again, the more you're around professionals and see the way they act and what it takes for them to be successful, it all translates. And again, if that's just showing a smile to someone, if that's just talking in a professional voice, if that's whatever that may be, carrying yourself in a positive manner, again, that goes a long way. And so I think I'm just so thankful for all the people along the way who have helped me in that sense. And again, to go back to Alderson Broaddus, again, for as busy as a year as I had, I was the only sports information director there, which that was a tough year. But again, to learn from that and to be able to talk to different people from throughout the years, it's so invaluable to just keep being able to keep doing that.
So what do we like to get into outside of the job?
Cody?
Any hobbies, extracurriculars?
Well, you mentioned mine, going to concerts.
Yeah.
I've been to way too many this summer. I think the count is at 15 for the year.
That's impressive.
And that's not including
That's impressive.
a couple of festival dates are included in there too.
So there is time to have a personal life outside of this.
There is, and the summer is a big time for that, which I personally have always been a big fan of summer. Honestly, I credit being a sports information director helping me discover a love of traveling. This summer I traveled to Europe for the first time, and again, I'm thankful for all the random bus rides to Monroe, Louisiana for kind of helping me want to discover different parts of the world. And so I did travel to Switzerland and Germany and England over the summer. So again, there's time to do it. You got to make time for it. Maybe you limit that to the summer, but there is time you can do it and you can have a life outside of it. There's just, you got to find a work-life balance.
Yeah, I mean, work travel is very different than leisure travel.
Right.
Right. I know that to be a fact too. But if you're just joining us, we are actually at the tail end of the program, so you missed the bulk of the fun. But we are happy to have you listening to Sportsview. But lucky for you, this is the first half of Sportsview. There's a whole other half hour. We'll get a whole new set of hosts. A whole new set of guests, and they'll have a party for the next half hour from 6:30 to 7. But guys, as we're kind of winding down here, what is, and David's talked a lot about it, what is one of the most rewarding things about being able to do this and facilitate with media, facilitate with stats? What do you get out of it?
Again, it goes back to the student athletes. Like when I was at South Alabama, I got to write a pair of emotional features about 2 women's basketball players I worked with, and getting to tell their stories and their backgrounds and their whys is why I continue to want to do what I do. It's fun to watch the student athletes and the coaches succeed.
Yeah, why do we do what we do? It's for the student athletes, and I feel like everyone, at the end of the day, that's what we should all be in for, is to help propel the student athletes, what they do. And again, I think about some of the interviews we've been around where some of the student athletes get emotional after a big win or even, unfortunately, after a big loss in a championship game. That really reminds you, that puts you into perspective. This is why we do what we do. This is really important to a lot of people. So it's our job to help them and really tell their story the best way we can.
Well, there's a lot more work to be done this fall, I know. I feel like we are just into the fall season, even just a couple weeks, and, that's football, and then before we're going to blink and basketball is going to get going, and I don't know, I don't have to tell you that, but, once you get into a rhythm of it, I know rhythm is a big thing for me as far as when I'm in season, when I'm in football mode. This is what I do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Are you guys able to structure your weeks like that, or is it kind of just depends on the week?
It really depends on the week, because sometimes, like when we had the first weekend of the year where we had 8 volleyball matches, I think it was 3 different soccer matches, football, just all going on at almost the same time at times. It just depends on, like, this week's a little bit of a more slower week with more teams on the road, or football's bye week.
Yeah, I looked at the schedule and there's like 1 game.
Yeah, so it's
wild.
And there is, once you get to conference play in basketball, and this is true in just so many different conferences, like, again, you might have that Thursday, Saturday rotation where you really get into it, or Wednesday and Saturday, whatever it may be. I think that's a helpful part once you kind of get into that January period where it's cold and it's dark, and so at least you're in a rhythm there with a Thursday and Saturday thing. But for the most part, though, it really depends on the week, especially here in the fall. It's just kind of buckle up in a sense.
And then with the winter, it also kicks up when baseball and softball start to
Right.
that throws it right out of whack.
There's a lot of excitement around the baseball program.
There is.
A new stadium, and that turf should be laying down pretty soon. And how excited are you to see that new facility?
Now, I know David and several other Marshall alums like yourself are probably more excited than me, but even since the time I've been here, we've had 2 or 3 groundbreaking ceremonies. So it's just been me. I've been waiting for it, just to see the new field, to be on campus. It's an exciting time for Marshall baseball, especially with Coach Beals some new staff in too, not only from last year into this year, that he's brought in a couple new faces too.
And a couple familiar faces.
Yeah.
Like Donnelly.
Yep. Well, new for me.
Yeah. Yeah, new for you.
Yep.
New for
Familiar
you.
to everybody else.
That's fair.
Just it's a great atmosphere to be around, a great time to be around, and it should be a very exciting time for Herd baseball next year.
Absolutely. Exciting time for a lot of sports here at Marsh University. Guys, thank you so much. This is David O'Leary. This is Cody Lynn. And they are 2/3 of a very effective sports information department headed up by a guy who I've got a lot of respect for in Grant Traylor. But I'm kind of upset that he shafted us on the program. Like, what's up with that?
Yeah,
He's taking some time off to himself this week with the bye week.
Hey, you got to take it when you can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Guys, thank you so much. This has been the first half of Sportsview. Stay tuned after the break, and we'll be back with more inside the world of Marshall athletics.
Instead of watching the news from home, listen to the news while on the way home.
Welcome to News Center 88.
Now on to our top story.
Weekdays at 5 p.m., News Center 88 broadcast all the day's news, sports, and weather reports in 30 minutes. That's perfect timing for the afternoon commute. So stop wasting precious time at home and start getting informed while on the go. News Center 88, weekdays at 5, only on 88.1 WMUL.
Hello and welcome to the Sportsview Sports Update. My name is Ben Cower, and tonight we'll have some recap packages for you right here during this segment. Let's begin this evening with John Boggess' report of the Marshall men's soccer team facing off versus the High Point Panthers.
The Marshall men's soccer team is off to its best start in program history. After defeating the High Point Panthers of the Big South Conference Friday 2-1, the Herd advanced to a 5-0 record. Prior to the match, the team had tied the record the 2000 team set with a 4-0 record when it defeated Pitt. After the tough win Friday, Coach Chris Grassy said the difference maker this season has been the support from Marshall's administration.
They were lucky enough to pilot an Alston program with us. That's made a difference. We have more depth. That means we have more talent. That means we have more competition for places. And then they support us with allowing us to go to Brazil in the summer. We've had an extra 2 months compared to everybody else.
In the match Friday, Marshall took an early lead with a goal from Alvaro Garcia Pascual, who headed in a goal from a corner kick by Alex Sterngard.
It's got over to the left inside the box, and it's tipped off of the foot of Alex O'Brill and in the net. Marshall scores first, 1-0 here in the 10th minute.
High Point would tie the match after responding with a goal shortly in the 17th minute. The Herd would once again go to the locker room at halftime with a tied game as it did in the previous match. High Point fouled early in the second half, setting up Matthew Bell to race down the field and find Marco Silva for the goal, putting Marshall at a 2-1 lead.
Bell, a left to right pass that finds the back of the net. And Marshall takes the lead 2-1.
After facing what Grassy called a tough opponent, he said there was areas to clean up before they face its next opponent, Cleveland State, Tuesday.
Today was tough because we had 2 days rest in between. It's very difficult to play with like that little rest. But I would say that we just need to clean up our counter prevention a little bit better, press the ball a little bit better. So it's that transition where as a team we want as little transitions as possible. We want as much control as possible. And so if we allow the other team to make it a transitional game, that doesn't suit us.
For FM 88 Sports, I'm John Boggess.
Thanks, John. The number 2 ranked Herd men's soccer team then went on to record its 4th shutout this season in its win last night over Cleveland State. That win coming 5-0 over the visiting Cleveland State Vikings. Again, its 4th shutout of the season on Tuesday. Now the number 2 Marshall men's soccer team moves on to 6-0 this season and now travels to open Sun Belt Conference play at now 9th ranked James Madison on Saturday at 7 p.m. in Harrisonburg, Virginia. And now Now, here's Ben Anderson with a recap and report of the Virginia Tech Invitational and the upcoming Thundering Herd Invitational this Friday for cross country here at Marshall University.
On September 1st, the Marshall cross country team started the 2023 season at the Virginia Tech Invitational. The Thundering Herd compete against 8 other teams, with the women's team finishing second and the men's team finishing fifth. Leading the women's team was graduate student and 2022 Sunbelt All-Conference runner Abby Herring, winning the 4K by nearly 30 seconds with a personal best time of 13 minutes and 51.6 seconds. Herring says she is proud of the women's team's overall performance.
I think the whole team performed well. It was a 4K, so it was a little bit different than what we're typically racing, so definitely different strategies going out faster than you normally would, but it was good and the whole team did well. Lots of PRs.
Leading the way for the men's team was graduate student Evan White, finishing 22nd in the 6K. White says even though he is proud of the men's team's overall performance, there is still need for improvement.
Still early in the season. Basically, it was good starting benchmark. I know I can do a lot better, and we have a lot of room to improve. As for the team, everyone looked strong. We had some really good performances. We had some guys that went out a little too fast, but we know that they're going to be well up in our top front pack, and basically it was a great starting meet, and we're really excited to move forward.
This Friday, the Marshall Cross Country team will compete in the first Thundering Herd Invitational at the YMCA Kennedy Center, marking the first home meet for the program since 1989. Cross country head coach Caleb Bowen says he is excited for the opportunity to host a home meet.
It's my very first cross-country meet hosting. I'm sure there's going to be some hiccups here and there, but hopefully we put on a great meet. Hope all the teams that are coming enjoy their time, enjoy the course, enjoy all the hard work we put into doing it. And I'm just excited to have home course for the athletes to have and to call it home. I think that's really important for them.
7 teams will be competing in the Thundering Herd Invitational, with the men's racing the 8K and the women's racing the 5K. For FM 88 Sports, I'm Ben Anderson.
Thanks, Ben. That will conclude this sports update here during Sportsview. And now the second half of the show will be John Boggess interviewing multiple members from HerdVision. I'm Ben Cower, and stay tuned for more Sportsview coming up next here on the Cutting Edge Sports Radio Network.
This just in. The WMUL news staff is looking for dedicated individuals to report, anchor, and produce its multi-award-winning daily newscast. No experience is required, and all majors may apply. Interested candidates should call 696-6640 or email wmulnews@marshall.edu. Join the crew for the best newscast for the state of West Virginia. News Center 88 on 88.1 WMUL.
Welcome back to Sportsview on the Cutting Edge Sports Radio Network. I'm John Boggess, presenting you the second half of tonight's program. If you've ever seen a Marshall Athletics program on ESPN Plus and wondered what goes on to get that production available to you, tonight my guests, Stephen Lucas, the broadcast production manager at Marshall University, and Piper Saroy, the director of broadcast and media at Marshall, know quite a bit about that. Stephen, Piper, thank you for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having us.
We'll go ahead and get started by letting you introduce yourselves. What are your roles at HerdVision?
So I'll go ahead and start off. So I'm, like he said, the broadcast production manager, and so I've been doing this full-time for over a year now. Actually, yesterday marks my year at Marshall, and basically my day-to-day role is just to come in, prep for the broadcast. Right now that includes just making graphics, setting up shows in replay, setting up the audio on site, things like that. We spend weeks in, weeks out just preparing for the upcoming broadcasts.
Yeah, so the two of us do very similar jobs. We kind of just split the roles. So as the director of multimedia and broadcast, we do very similar. Same, we're building graphics, we're doing replays, any of those type of things. And then I've been handling a lot of the HR side of things, interviewing new candidates, setting up all their HR paperwork, and going through a lot of that recently. When it's busy, we split up the sport, so we try to not overload one person working 9 games a week. We try to split up the work and try to not burn each other out.
What kind of academic and hands-on experience have you had before your roles at HerdVision?
So I've been doing HerdVision since my sophomore year at Marshall. So this is going into my 5th year doing HerdVision. But outside of that, as far as broadcasting goes, that's pretty much it. Like, I've just been doing it this is my 5th year now, and I've starting to get really comfortable with what I'm doing at HerdVision.
I'm an outsider in my perspective. I came from High Point University in North Carolina. That's where I went to school. That's where I got my bachelor's. And I was part of a program that's very similar to what we have here. It was called SportsLink, but it was the same thing. So I was an unpaid intern, basically. And I worked my way up through, and eventually I was hired as part-time staff by the athletic department. So I was an actual staff member working in and out as a student. So I did a lot of work with them. And then I worked with other freelancers in that area. So I've worked with teams like the Charlotte Hornets. I've worked with Tupelo Honey, where I did the Division III NCAA tournament for track and field 2 years ago. So I've got a lot more, kind of an eclectic amount of other things that I've worked with.
Was it weird seeing High Point University again so soon when they played Marshall soccer?
It was so nice. So we've played both men's and women's now. Our first stream actually this year was versus High Point. So it felt kind of like a sign. I don't know. I'm not a huge religious, but it felt like a sign from God that like our first stream here was going to end up being High Point. The first time, nobody from High Point traveled with the team, so I didn't get to see any of the people I used to work with. But last week, the SIDs, the other creative department people were all here. So we went up, we had lunch on Thursday, watched practice, kind of hung out. And it was really good to see everybody. And everybody was so excited to hear about everything here. And they're very excited. I've been invited back in the spring to do the Big South basketball tournament with them. So I'm going to be going back in a couple months over a couple weekends and working through some freelance stuff with them as well again.
Well, under the titles that you all work, what kind of duties do you all entail on a day-to-day basis working this job?
So right now, Piper and I kind of split on game days. We kind of split doing producing and directing. So one week I'll produce and she'll direct, and the next week we'll probably flip-flop. But like I said earlier, most of it is we're working on getting a new graphics machine. So right now we're making our own graphics in Photoshop, which is a lot of work, but it's actually taught me a lot more about Photoshop and getting that experience from making those just from scratch pretty much, just from the basic graphics that they send us from ESPN. Outside of that, like I said earlier, just kind of setting up replay shows, which is pretty simple. Just getting our switcher board ready, customizing it the way that we like it personally. And then, also just looking at the upcoming schedules with students, like trying to reach out to students like, hey, we need another spot to fill. Sign up if you can. And then continuing to onboard students too. Like, since we're still near the beginning of the semester, we're still trying to onboard some new students, still trying to visit some classes, still sending out some emails, letting people know that we're here, we have job opportunities for you, we pay, right? So just trying to get that out and just setting up for the broadcast.
He pretty much sums it all up. It looks different every day. It's kind of hard to say what we look like every day, and every week looks different. I know that Cody and David talked about it earlier. Some weeks where we've got like 7 streams in like 6 days, I think. Yeah. It's chaos. Like, there's just stuff going on. Other weeks, like this week where they talked about there's only 2 home events this week. It's a lot quieter. It's more, pick up on the paperwork, take a little bit of time off on one day because we're going to be working over the weekend, and a little bit of flex time, kind of make it work each week, and it'll end up bouncing out in the end.
Mm-hmm. So obviously HerdVision plays this big part on being on ESPN+, but what kind of purpose does HerdVision serve outside of the broadcast on ESPN+?
So the biggest example that I can think of is we also handle press conferences, which we did used to do on ESPN Plus last year. We did it for a while, and then we decided it was better to direct those towards our YouTube channel, the Marshall Athletics YouTube channel. That way we can go back, edit it, add some graphics if needed, add like a little watermark if needed. But yeah, we do a lot of press conferences. Like the biggest example is the Coach Huff press conference we do every Tuesday at noon. And then last year we got into doing the women's basketball weekly press conferences and stuff like that. We do a lot of the post-game stuff too. So what you're seeing now on YouTube, if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, there's a lot of Coach Grassy, Coach Swan, and there's a couple of Coach Ari Agnes on there as well. We handle those post-games with whoever we have that has talent. So we go ahead and record those, post those to YouTube. Outside of that, right now it's just we have some office moving that we're doing. We're actually currently painting the control room a new color just to give it a nice new look. We're moving offices, so we have an office space upstairs where the old ticket office used to be, in the Henderson Center. So, lots going on, but yeah, that's pretty much what's happening.
We cover a lot more than that. You're selling us short. Recently, there was an infrastructure change, so we have joined with the IT department as well as athletics. So it's not just the two of us that are in HerdVision. It also includes Ryan Vance and Sebastian Morris, and they are more the university side. So any sort of broadcast you see on campus is technically still HerdVision. We focus on athletics, but if they need someone, we can help university and vice versa. It's kind of meant to foster together so everybody can all work better together and everyone's broadcast look better. So if you're watching like a commencement live stream, if you're watching like a TEDx, I know we stream those, all of those are technically still under HerdVision, and we're responsible for staffing those and running those as well.
And this one might be more for Steven, since Steven's been around a lot longer. But how did HerdVision really come to be? How did it start? Where did it come from to be what it is at Marshall today?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it actually started before my time as a student. So it started about 2016, 2017 era. Ryan Vance was a big part of like setting it up technically, along with Eric Himes and plenty of others that I don't really know. Came about, we got our central control room about that time, put all the gear in there and everything. And yeah, that's when it started. And since then, year by year, we've just been able to improve. Like the more we've been able to raise our budget, ask for more, and then that leads into last year when we moved into the Sun Belt. Like they have a lot better minimum standards than than Conference USA does, and so that includes every game goes to ESPN Plus if we do it right. So we're doing a lot more broadcasts, a lot more work, but it's fantastic.
And for you, Piper, getting to kind of come in on this as it is what it is today, what experiences that you had at High Point kind of helped you into what you're doing now?
Yeah, so I think the whole reason I was hired was to help grow. That's the whole point. The program is growing, and we're going new places that we've never been before. The goal was to bring in someone that was from somewhere else that knew things that not everybody here doesn't know. It's been a very similar group, so I have a lot more experience with other softwares that we don't use here. So when we were in the process of looking for a new graphics machine, everyone here had only ever used Viz, which is what we had before. So Ryan came to me and he said, hey, what did you use? What do you have experience with? And we kind of talked through what these other softwares look like, and we settled on a different software. So we went to a completely different brand, and we're changing our plan there. So the goal is kind of just to have a different perspective. I'm not a local. I'm not from here. I'm from DC originally. So it's different to have someone come in and be able to say, hey, this is how other people are doing it. What if we try this? Or we try to just tweak things a little bit and try to bring the broadcast up a little better.
All right, well, with that, we'll head to our first break. When we return, we'll talk about the student involvement at HerdVision to close out the second half of tonight's program. You're listening to Sportsview on the Cutting Edge Sports Radio Network.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, the WMUL request line is sync.
Oh man, we're out of range. I'll miss all of my favorite music.
No worries. With WMUL's 24/7 live stream, the cutting edge of your radio dial becomes the cutting edge of your phone too. Just go to marshall.edu/WMUL and your favorite music goes wherever you do. I'll pull it up now, just in time for more music.
Call 696-6651 now. DJs are standing by.
You're listening to West Virginia's first public radio station.
Public radio? What does that mean?
No commercials.
Well, all I'm trying to say is maybe no commercials is a good idea. Help build ratings.
So crank up the commercial-free sound of WMUL FM 88.1, and we guarantee you won't hear one single commercial.
Welcome back to Sportsview on the Cutting Edge Sports Radio Network. I'm John Boggess, joined alongside Stephen Lucas and Piper Saroy, members of HerdVision. So in the first half of our HerdVision segment tonight, we kind of took a look into who you two are and how HerdVision has come to be. But I want to talk a little bit more about the employees that you all have at HerdVision. Who do you all typically look for to hire to work for within HerdVision?
Students, 100%.
specifically, students in the School of Journalism tend to be our more common students, but we're open to any students, anybody that wants to work. You don't have to have any experience. A lot of students, like, we don't expect you to have these cameras like sitting around at home. So we look for students that don't have a lot of experience, but they want to be interested. So sometimes it's just people that like sports that come just want to watch sports, want to work sports, they'll come do it. Other times we've got students that are like the School of Journalism, like one of our students is actually directing today's show, where they want to do anything broadcast related. So it's kind of a big variety, but most of our students, correct me if I'm wrong, most of them are from the School of Journalism.
Well, since students don't need to really possess any sort of requirements upon joining HerdVision, is there some sort of starting role for those students as they get into the job before, they get up to being play-by-play commentator?
You can.
Yeah, so we usually start you as a camera. So the idea is you kind of work your way up the ladder. So a camera is kind of the lowest man on the totem pole when it comes to broadcasting. It's not easy, but it's the simplest thing to do. So we'll teach you, we onboard you, we go through a whole training process of what is a camera, what are all these pieces mean, what are we talking about. We've got paperwork and things that you can look through, like cheat sheets that tell you what words mean what and how to do all these. Once you're comfortable with the camera, we can start moving kind of on a case-by-case basis of what you're going to do next. So some students might be more inclined to go to like an audio level position, whereas other students might end up doing replay and extra graphics, and you kind of work your way up, and it depends on the student. Some students will pick everything up really quickly, and by like game 2, they're bored of cameras, but you still got to put in your hours. But it depends on the students, and ideally they would be able to work their way up all the way, get some directing experience if that's what they want to do, producing experience, and they just have to kind of put in the hours so they're comfortable with their position before we move them up.
Yeah, well said.
Well, as you kind of mentioned that relationship with journalism, that's really with the sports journalism department when it comes to finding student commentators for HerdVision. This relationship has kind of been built between the department and HerdVision. What benefit would a sports journalism student, or really any journalism student for that matter, have from joining the HerdVision team?
I mean, I feel like you got a lot of different experience that you can get from us. Like, so especially like sports broadcasting, this side of the camera, right? I'm not used to being on this side of the camera, but I'm going to talk about it. For talent-wise, sometimes we hire freelance, but a lot of it we're looking for students. Like, we want to fully get to 100% students. So if we pull, like, people from WMUL, right, people from the School of Journalism, if they want to get into more of like a radio, more of like a TV talent sort of thing, we're looking for that. We want to get you your reps. We want to get you your practice in, so that way you can go off and be great and you know that you started at HerdVision. Outside of that, it just works into the curriculum that we have here at the School of Journalism with sports broadcasting and TV and radio and stuff like that. So come in, get your camera experience, come and get your audio experience, right, especially on the radio. So it all kind of blends together, and we're working, every day in and out to try to strengthen that relationship that we have from athletics to the university side of things.
And with the other majors that kind of walk into HerdVision looking to get started with you all, what kind of benefits do other majors, what kind of other majors do you all really see coming wanting to work at HerdVision?
Yeah, so I'll speak on this to start just because I'm actually not a major out of the School of Journalism. I'm a sports management major, which is technically business now, but it was health professions when I went. The sports management curriculum demands a practicum your sophomore, junior, and senior year. So students that have that sort of practicum in their curriculum can come to HerdVision and get those hours that they need to pass that class, which is what I had to do. It was like 60 hours, 90 hours, and like some number in the hundreds for the senior year. So, yeah, and a lot of, if you're outside of journalism, we do get a lot of sports management. I know we had a good student when I was a student. He was, in another thing in business, I think it might have been marketing, but we tend to get a lot of sports management, journalism, and then if you're something else and you're just interested in the technological side of the broadcast, we'll have you for sure.
It also helps just to have anything on your resume. So if you're a student that's into something, if you're like a like a physician's assistant, or if you're in some sort of medical school where it's really hard to get internship hours when you're in your undergrad years, having any sort of internship, anything on your resume that can say, hey, I did something of quality, I did something that was worth my time, I didn't just sit around and watch TV at school, like I didn't just party every Friday, I went and did things. People that are hiring are looking for that out of the school, out of when you graduate. If you don't have that resume that looks wonderful and has something that you can talk about, it's really hard to get that first job. So ideally, even if you're not a journalism student, anything that says, hey, I was an intern for Marshall Athletics, I did these things, I put in these hours, I have these people that I work with that are willing to be references, it really helps you get that first job when you're starting out.
If a non-journalism student came to HerdVision wanting to be a play-by-play commentator or a color analyst, how would the training go about to prepare them for that?
So we're still kind of looking at what that would look like. We've never really had student broadcasters before. It was always the person that was in my role before, and now it's freelancers. So we're still working with kind of what that would look like. We're working with WMUL to try to figure out what that would look like. But coming from High Point, I trained students. I have a sports broadcasting degree, and I was in charge of the students that called games at High Point. So I have a little more experience. It would kind of, the idea would be like small group lessons is kind of what we're leaning towards, where you'd have a small group, whether it be like 4 or 5 students, they would meet with someone, whether that be me or whether that be with some, I'm already talking with broadcasters from North Carolina, everywhere, that are willing to zoom in and kind of talk to students, talk through what do game notes look like, what does it mean to do this, what is this, what are you expected to wear, like kind of talk through these things with you. And then you would have a tryout per se, where you would have like a mock broadcast where we can see you and hear you and see how you're doing. If you're ready to go, then you would be ready to go. Otherwise, you would have a couple more if you need to work up to getting on the air.
Well, I know HerdVision so far this year, you all have used students on soccer play-by-play, but in sports like football, you have professionals such as Mark Martin come in and call those games. Is there some sort of order as to who would get to call these games, or do you presume that maybe one day students would be calling football on ESPN+?
Yeah, obviously we're always working towards the elevation of students and getting, like she said, we're trying to get to the point where most of our commentators are becoming students. Football is just kind of a different animal for us right now because, you know, it's such a big broadcast. There's so much that goes into it. And we like to do freelancers for that, and that's kind of just like the industry standard outside of this too, is to have freelancers for football. But I'm hopeful to get to a day where if we like really start getting some talented students in, and we're coaching them, and we just form this whole program of student broadcasters that want to be a part of HerdVision. I think there's a decent chance of that happening, you know, maybe sooner rather than later, at least for football. I know we still use freelancers for men's basketball, and that's just because, you know, the coaches show for football and men's basketball at the very least, you know, that's contracted through WCHS, so we have those people that come in and help us with that. But we're trying to get to the point where, you know, a lot of our color commentators are students, and then once we get to the point where, you know, all these students are becoming very good at what they do at HerdVision, hopefully all of them will be students from here on out.
Well, going back to kind of that history of HerdVision, and when HerdVision was starting out, was it ever like students calling that, or has there always been someone kind of hired on to do so?
Yeah, so for HerdVision specifically, as long as I've been a part of it, it was the guy who had Piper's position before her. He kind of he just took on that role of being like the play-by-play guy, and then, you know, if we needed a color commentator, we would just add one like to him being play-by-play. Except for football we would do two different people that we freelance. So I have not seen a point where students are calling the games. It's just been a lot of the guy who's before Piper. So yeah, that's what HerdVision looks like right now. We're getting to the point where we're starting to include some more students on broadcast, and it's getting exciting.
And the final question, what benefit does HerdVision get when these students are interested?
I mean, it's good to say that like all your crew is students, right? Like that's such a flex. Like like just to put it simply, we're not a school that just has, we're not floating in money, so we're not like hiring every single position to be freelance. So whenever we're able to staff a game fully with just students, I think that is so impressive on what we're doing here and maybe what other schools are doing, but I think we're doing it exceptionally well, staffing it fully with students, and they're getting that experience and they're becoming professionals while they're still students, including yourself. I mean, I know the director of this show got a shout out. John Boggess is at HerdVision too, so the host. So yeah, you're one of them.
It definitely helps HerdVision just to be able to say that. But personally, the reason I stayed in collegiate athletics is because I wanted to work with the students. I wasn't ready to hang up the hat and just say, hey, I'm just going to work only with professionals. I love that part of my job. I love having students that'll come up to me and be like, hey, why does this work? How does this work? Can you show me how to do this? That's the best part of our job. So if we get a group of students that really want to do that, which I think we do have, we've got a wonderful group of students that really want to know. I love going to work and working with those students and having them show up and want to be involved. I mean, we were the same students like 4 years ago. Like, we're not that old. It's really, I don't know, soul searching, I guess, for us to be able to look back and see kind of, oh my gosh, 3 years ago, that was me, and to try to like foster the next generation of broadcasting.
And something I didn't mention was when, like linear ESPN trucks come in, like ESPN, ESPN2, like they reach out to like, whether it's my boss or us, they reach out to us to see like who can be a runner, who can be a utility, maybe who can even be a camera op. We send our students directly to them. So you get that experience while you're with us too.
Well, that's going to do it for tonight's edition of Sportsview. I'd like to thank once again Stephen Lucas and Piper Soroy of HerdVision for joining me tonight. We appreciate you, the listener, for joining in with us, and we hope that you will tune in to HerdVision's work on ESPN Plus and appreciate students applying their skills and realizing the efforts it takes to put on a quality broadcast at ESPN Plus and WMUL. You've been listening to Sportsview on the Cutting Edge Sports Radio Network.
WMUL 88.1.
You have come. You will die today, old man. I know why you were here. You were here because you do not like WMUL. Oh, no. WMUL is my favorite radio station. It plays the best variety in the tri-state area. I actually came because you killed my father, swine merchant. Prepare to die. You have tasted 88.1 WMUL's cutting edge. Now you will perish on mine.
88.1